Welcome to the UIAAA Connection podcast. Hometown Ticketing is proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection podcast and to provide schools nationwide with the best options for digital ticketing for their events. Visit their website at hometownticketing.com to learn how they can make digital ticketing possible and simple at your school. Thank you to Hometown Ticketing for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection podcast.
Welcome to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch-Hunter. Today, we are pleased to have as our guest, Steve Hoagland, Athletic Director at Piute High School in Junction, Utah. Welcome to the program, Steve.
Thanks, Mark. Sure appreciate you.
Why don't you start out by sharing with our audience where you grew up, where you went to college, your first job, those types of things.
Yeah. My father was an educator and coached 36 years in education, 36 years. So I was always around education, coaching, football, basketball, track, small schools. And so as a kid, I was always at practice, dribbling a basketball, learning, playing, whatever it took, managing, taking stats throughout my grade school and even junior high years, till I got playing in high school. So that was a big influence on my life. Grew up in southeastern Idaho, and then about my high school career, Dad took a job in Jackson, Wyoming. So those were the good days in Jackson, Wyoming. Now it's a little big, but what a great place to go to. Always involved in sports. So, we got to see things and do a little fishing and hunting, little things like that, but never as much as I wanted to because athletics was such an important thing. Growing up in ski country, I never skied because basketball and sports, winter sports. So what a great place to grow up back in those days. Love
so
sports.
You mentioned southeast Idaho, so up as high as Pocatello or farther south than that?
Yeah, Pocatello area, couple Aberdeen, Idaho, Hoagland, Idaho.
Not up as high as like Blackfoot, Chile, not that far north.
No, but I did teach in St. Anthony, Idaho for 4 years.
Really? And what years? Let me just ask you quickly. What year were those years?
I was in St. Anthony in 93 to about 97.
Okay, so that's when I mentioned St. Anthony just because it rang a bell because obviously the Teton flood came through there 20 years before you taught there.
Yeah, but still was in Idaho growing up, so I knew that area and people in that area, and that was a crazy time. Yeah, huge disaster. But
and so when you started, was it pretty well the effects were over by then, or some of the effects, the economy and stuff still there?
Yeah, and farming can come back, and it's mostly agricultural farming, potatoes, sugar beets, those things. So it was good. One of the reasons I took that because I was only like 80 miles over the hill from Jackson. So I was closer to family and where I grew up. I was married at the time. So she was from Milford, where I started my coaching career.
Okay.
And so her family, we were making that trip back and forth. I finally took the job back in Milford for the second time. Okay. So in 1990, I started coaching in Milford, football, basketball. Was there 2 years, went to Idaho for 4 and back to Milford. Then again, you think of moving up the ladder in coaching. And that's probably the reason I got into education was to stay in, the realm of basketball and athletics. And it took me a while. I went to SUSC back in the day.
Right.
It's now Southern Utah. So again, I'm showing my age. Went on a basketball scholarship. And again, showing my age, that's back when you had short shorts and long socks. The uniform was the short shorts and the long, but had a fantastic coach there, Tom McCracken. Tom McCracken was at Southern Utah 3 years that I was there. and then went to the University of Utah as an assistant for Lynn Archibald, U of U.
Right.
You remember probably back when Lynn Archibald was head basketball coach at unit.
Right. And I remember McCracken being assistant there.
Great coach, learned a ton. So I went up with him for a couple years as a grad assistant, and then moved back to Jackson, helped my dad coach, worked a little bit. It was tough making a living, you know, back in the day when you're not making a lot of money. So that had a effect, got into some construction. But it's cold winters there, and standing on top of a roof one winter, and I said, you know, I probably better finish my teaching credentials, because all I had to do was student teach.
Right.
So I went back, got a job, and I've been 32 years in education now, coaching, teaching.
So in Southeast Idaho, did you have the chance to play in a lot of youth sports? I assume they had quite a few leagues up there.
Yeah. Not a lot back then. You know, I went to more or less the individual camps growing up at Idaho State. Jim Killingsworth was at Idaho State. So I saw that the change from growing up, going to individual camps, to when I started coaching, it was more team camps. Team camps was games.
Right.
I always, you know, an individual, you were doing fundamentals all the time. You got to play some, but the big change was when I started coaching was more individual, or you got away from the individuals to the team camps where you just went and played. I think there's got to be a happy medium where you're doing more individuals, you know, fundamentals. I don't think kids do that as much now. You know, they want to just play games. So I saw that revolution.
They want to shoot the rock. They get across half court. As soon as they catch it, they want that baby up in the air.
They want the 3-pointer.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want, and what a way that had changed the game, the 3-point, you know, line. And even in our meeting yesterday, the shot clock. How do you feel about the shot clock?
You know, I don't know. I know that there's rarely schools that hold the ball, but in all the years that I coached high school, and all the games that I've watched, I can't think of, outside of 2 games that I watched, where they just basically got the ball and held it. I've never seen someone just try to hold the ball. But of course, I've been out of coaching for, my goodness, I think the last time I coached basketball was 89. So that's over 30 years ago. Yeah. And you saw, well, there were some slow down basketball at that time and patience. Right. I don't know if I'm a huge, and I don't coach basketball anymore, but I coached it for 23 years. I don't know, well, as a head coach for 23 years, but I'm not a big change guy. I don't know if I would like it now. I don't like, you know, it might make it more exciting. There are times, say you're up 5 with 2 minutes left. Right. Are you gonna make sure you get a good shot? And there were times as a coach that I did that, but nowadays I don't know. I mean, I like the up tempo type style of basketball where you're getting up and down the floor, you're pushing the ball, you get more kids in because you're pressing, you're running, you know, so you get to play more kids. So, but it might be a time for a change and have that in. Well, I think what it's going to boil down to is what the 1A through the 4A classifications say about it, the principals, the ADs, and the coaches, because a school on the Wasatch Front in the 5A, 6A may be able to afford a clock fairly easily, and then someone to run it. When you get to particularly a smaller school like yours, you don't have the same kind of income and budget in a real small district that you're going to have that, and you have to have someone man it. So I think that's going to be some of the big issues when it comes back in the survey. Yeah, and that was the first thing I did today because of our meeting yesterday. I talked to our basketball coaches to see how they felt. And again, they're torn a little. Some think it's a good thing. But again, when you talk about cost, and then when you find about somebody running the thing, because again, I would have to do a little studying just to know the rules on when you start it, when you don't, you know. Right. What do you do on an airball? Does it have to hit the rim? Taking the ball out of bounds when, you know, and so there's some
some education that needs to be taught
Sure.
for us
And
all
there's
to know
going to
the
be,
rules.
do you have it at the JV level? Do you have it at the sophomore level? Is it going to be boys and girls? Who's going to man that clock at that sophomore game, or even maybe a freshman level game where you've got 15 people in the stands? You don't have anybody to man the clock. They expect it to be run. So it's a huge issue. No question about that.
It'll be interesting. But once you get through all that, it's probably going to be probably the thing of the future. It just might take a few years to get it all figured out.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So when did you leave Milford and go to Piute?
I spent 2 years at Grantsville and then to Piute. And I've been here 23 years. I think this is my 23rd year. Again, I like rural America. I'm in the mountains. I got lakes, fishing, streams. I like to fish, hunt. I'm outdoors. Some days traffic. I don't have much traffic, if you understand that. That's a good thing.
Yeah. Coming up 89, everybody takes the freeway and they kind of leave you all alone.
Yeah, now it's kind of changed. There's pros and cons. My parents are in St. George, so I caregive for them on weekends. So I see the city. I'm where I need to get whatever I need, but then I'm back into rural America during the week and school and small classrooms. So there's pros and cons. I enjoy it here. We got good administration, good kids, pretty good kids. We always have issues,
Oh, well, you have issues anywhere.
But my daughter enjoyed it growing up. She's been graduated 10 years now, but once I got tired of moving, I guess. I got tired of packing the U-Haul and moving up the ladder, and so it works both ways. There's some good things.
Share with our listeners how you became the AD. Did the principal come to you and say, we need an athletic director? Did you apply for it? How did that work?
Well, when I first got here, we didn't really have one.
Right.
You set the clock up, you mop the floors, you did all this stuff. We have a great custodial here also, but you helped, after a day of PE in the gyms and you had a game that night. Being a basketball player, you wanted the floors to be cleaned and everything, so you spent a little time cleaning and mopping and getting everything up. And so just after so many years of that, you kind of bargain with them to put that in your salary a little bit because you're putting in the time,
Right.
So it's been really good. I've enjoyed the connection with the UIAAA. I've really enjoyed the camaraderie with you guys. You get to hear things at the large schools, the 4 and 5 and 6A schools. You hear all kinds of issues there. I like to kind of be the person of interest to help all the small schools. I've been a member for years, and I enjoy it. I enjoy coming up, the camaraderie with you guys. Everybody gets along. We talk about issues, and I try to pass that on to the other small schools. So it's been kind of interesting. I'm always a person that thinks we can learn and get better at things. So it's interesting, whether it's a football issue, whether it's, I don't know, whatever it is would be at a high school, a big school. So it's been interesting. So I've enjoyed the connection.
Let's go deep into your connection with the UIAAA, because if I'm not mistaken, I think this is your second time around serving on the athletic director executive committee. And I know you served years ago, and then another person in your region got the chance and you're back on. That doesn't happen to a lot of people. So talk about your journey with the UIAAA, the experiences you've had at the state conference, those types of things.
Just so I can come up and have lunch with you once a month. That's what I enjoy, Mark. No. Again, once I got out of coaching, I've had more time, and as the athletic director and with our Region 20. So I'm the representative for Region 20. And again, I've developed pretty good relationships with other coaches and principals and ADs in our region. And I just feel like I'm doing a job to relay what we learn and what we go through in our meetings, trying to get people certified. I know that's an important thing. The classes that we take and learn, our conferences, you do a fantastic job in our conferences, the speakers we bring in. And I think a big part is just, like I said, the camaraderie and staying close with other coaches and ADs and principals. You know, you learn. And again, I hear you mention you coached. So
sure,
it's kind of a difference in the coaching and the administration part. As an administrator, you know, when you're a coach, you don't really understand what the administrators are going through until you really do it. There's pros and cons. I think I've learned enough that I try to get coaches to understand where the administrations come from and what their job is and what they have to get accomplished. But I still like to know their opinion, and I try to be the person that correlates both with them, if that makes sense. You know, I think it's important to get their opinion. And I'm sure I had an argument or two with my administrators as just being the coach, you know, why we had to do this, or why we had to do that, or, you know, Region 20 is one of the last that still has region tournaments.
Right.
And you have to deal with some coach, you know, if you're on the top, if you're first or second or third in the league, mostly first or second, you might not want a region tournament because we have a pretty strong region.
Oh, no question.
And for years and years and years, one would be knocked off somewhere in the tournament and they wouldn't get that higher seed. So it has good and the bad. But what we don't understand is usually our region tournaments runs our region, and it's changing, you know, with
you get so much gate from that. You get so much. I mean, talk about people traveling. I know I've been to very few of the 1A, but I remember one year I was scorekeeping, and this has got to be maybe 35 years ago, down at the 1A state tournament. And I was just amazed at the amount of people that are there for the week. And I can only imagine what it's like in those region tournaments. And like you say, to finance your region, that's a big thing.
It's been huge. Now things have changed a little bit where online games, you know, when we're with the technology today and we're showing games all the time, that's changed a little bit. And there probably isn't as much people traveling as much watching because you can stay home. You know, back in the day, you're a diehard fan in these small communities, and that's what you have. I always said, if I was going to rob a bank, it would be during the region or state tournament because nobody's out there, right?
No, that's exactly right.
No, because everybody travels. And again, it's the camaraderie of the regions, and you get to meet people from all over. And that's one thing. I also coach golf. And so you would have basketball or wrestling or baseball where you're competing against other schools. It seems like in the spring with track and golf, kids from other schools get to play, you know, you divide them up, or you
right.
Your best golfers play. You don't play as a team, you play with other people and establish good rapport and relationships. And I've known many kids from these small communities that go on to college at Southern Utah or Dixie or UVU, and they room together because they've competed in the strong sports, and then you get into a golf or a track or another sports, and you establish good friendships, and it's neat to see from these small communities.
Sure. Let me go back and to something you said earlier a few minutes ago. You talked about the difference between being a coach and being an administrator, and give me your thoughts on this, because I always thought when I went to a coaching clinic, the person would stand up and they want you to think they're giving you all the secrets of their basketball or their football, and they're basically giving you the 35% of anybody can do this. But when you go to an athletic director conference, they just hand it to you. Oh, I've had a handbook here. Take this here. This is what I've done. This is take what you need, and that's kind of a different look at things. Comment on that.
Right. Hats off to Richard Barton. You know, he's close. He's in Richfield. I've had many conversations with Richard. He's helped. He's been doing this a long time. Great guy to ask questions to and help and get information from. And you're right. You know, I'll differ just a little bit on the coaches clinic. I think a lot of coaches give good information. I don't know if they give everything.
Right.
But and I've been to many of those coaches clinics where you learn. And I think from a coach's standpoint, you got to pick and choose. I think that's the experience after so many years. Mm-hmm. You get so much information when you're starting out in coaching, and you want to try everything, and you want to try, you know, they're telling you everything and you're trying everything. You know, you got to have a philosophy, and you got to pick and choose some of the things that they're telling you that will work within your philosophy. I appreciate what you just said about the athletic directors conference, that they're trying to make you the best that you can be in every aspect. And the legality is probably one of the hugest things that I think that we're gaining. I just ran my cross country team, and even though we're in rural America, it's the safety issues that you're worried about. Like if you're running on the road or wherever, you know, you're still worried. Okay, flashing lights on a car, so everybody know, you know, you don't want an accident. So again, I think when you first start out, you don't know if you think about those things, but after going to the conferences, and you guys do a fantastic one in St. George. It's fun. You have a lot of activities, but again, the legality, I think nowadays you really have to take that into consideration. And so even in the coaching, you'll learn all these important issues that you got to stay safe. And don't you think that's one of the biggest issues we have now?
And I think, that's one of the reasons we offer 504 and 506 one year, and then 508 and 510 the next. So within a 2-year period, you can have a chance to take those courses. Because I had an assistant principal tell me once, well, yeah, we had a law course when I got my administrative degree. And I'm thinking a law course, which probably had 10 minutes of sports law in it. And we've got 4 courses. And of course, those ADs need that. Let me ask you this, Steve. What's one thing you wish you had known when you began your career that you didn't know that you know now that would have helped you out?
Well, you know, I think experience is a thing that you just, you know, you can take the classes, which help, you know, even with a college degree. I had friends or teammates that went through the education system with me and got their degree in education. But once they had to student teach, they didn't know if they could do it, you know, so it's the same kind of issue. Experience is important. And once you go through all that and you learn year by year, I just think you get better at it, and hope none of those things hamper that. But you see what I mean with, they didn't know once they student taught how they had to deal with kids and parents and administration and preparing for class and all that stuff. So they should try to do that somewhere along the 4 years before they put all 4 years into it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I go back to, and I like the way you said it, because I can think when I was at the University of Utah in, I want to say 78. So it's my last year. And of course, we're at I've already got my degree, but you have to student teach. And I can remember being in with these professors. There's maybe 20 of us in there. We're in 2 different cohorts. And of course, we started to student teach. And what struck me is, I thought pretty much you could tell by the way that people interacted with each other and by the way they discuss things with each other, who could be the good teachers. And what I mean by that is there was 2 kids that had 4.0s in college. They had 4.0s since they were in kindergarten.
Right.
And but when it came time to teach, they couldn't teach a lick. They were smart. They had the brains behind it, but they could not teach a lick. And it turns out that the people in my class that were the B plus students, which was me and maybe 3 or 4 of my buddies, survived and taught. Joey Soto was one of those that's still teaching at Bingham, even though I've been out a few years. But I can remember these 3 top students. The professors loved him. They gave him all the special treatments. But when push came to shove, they couldn't teach a lick. And so I like what you said about that.
Well, and the background, I think, growing up in the education system, I don't know. It's different today, you know. In fact, I had a little.
That certainly helped you being with your father all those years.
Right. I think it helped, but it's still, again, I use this term being old school. I mean, I think you understand being old school. It's still respect. It's still following directions. It's still, you know, there's all these new ideas how to learn and to teach. And, you know, I still like some of my best classes are when we have class discussion. I teach U.S. history and government, and class discussions where we get everybody involved. But I still want, you know, the respect and one person talking at a time, and it's different. And some of them have a hard time with it, and I have a hard time with it because I've been doing it my way for a while.
Right.
I like all new ideas. You know, I can still learn. We can all get better. That's one of my favorite sayings is I can get better. We can get better at things. And anything that it takes for children or student athletes to learn, I'm all for. But I still think it's those discipline type things that are important. And It's harder and harder. And, you know, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to ask a question that's totally off script that has nothing to do with being an athletic director, just because you mentioned you teach U.S. history. So I went back to the NEDC, which was in the Black Hills this year. And my wife and I stopped at the Little Bighorn battlefield on the way back through Montana. We went up down through Cook City, through Yellowstone.
Great drive.
I want your perspective as a history teacher, because I know I came away from there thinking how arrogant and how dumb Custer must have been seeing the battlefield. But I just want your take on that. Like I say, it really, for those that are waiting for a great athletic director answer, this is not. This is just something on the side. But I want your take on that, being a history teacher.
You know, like different things throughout history, whether it's Civil War and slavery and whatever. I want everybody to understand, for example, the Native American, you know, their life was totally different than what we assumed. We tried to assimilate them into our way of doing things. You know, even today, there's places that are a little bit different and they live a little bit different, but they didn't really feel like they owned things. They just took what they needed. You know, we have a little bit different take on that. But some of those, I always like a good plan, I guess you could say, whether it's in sports, basketball, whatever. But these Native Americans had great plans and what they were going to do. You know, Crazy Horse and some of these other fantastic Native American chiefs did a great job of correlating a plan that came together with a victory. And you can take that into athletics also, but yeah. And there was miscommunication. And again, in school, in coaching, and as an athletic director, communication is huge, right? Absolutely. I mean, you have to communicate with your coaches, your other administrators, and players and all that. So they had much better communication. But yeah, that's a great drive. You went up to there and had a better perception of what took place.
Absolutely.
And again, though, the Native Americans, they just, Dances with Wolves is one of my favorite shows in the sense that there was laughter and family and all these things that I don't know as people understood that. They got pushed back off their land over and over and over, treaties broken over and over and over, the Black Hills especially.
Yeah, we'll just take this and you can have this desert land.
Well, they could have the Black Hills, and that's gorgeous country. There's lakes, rivers, streams, desert, forest. But then once the Black Hills gold was discovered, then they broke treaties and they went up the Bozeman Trail all the way in and probably took more land. And, that wasn't part of their agreement.
No,
so
I agree. 100%. Let's get back to the AD talk, and thank you for that answer, because I'm fascinated by that. What's your favorite part of your job as an athletic director?
I'm going to put that in perspective as just teaching and coaching. I like to give kids a bad time, I guess. I have good camaraderie with the kids. I have good rapport with the kids, I think. Something that's been interesting. Well, and I'm sure you had a day or two, and help me with this, because I have them many times getting up. Oh, I've got to go to work. Oh, I got to deal with kids again. But something happens when I walk through that door and I see some of these kids, and it turns it. I'm in a better situation. I talk. There's something about it that I enjoy. But like I said, I can kid with them, I think. I don't know if it's always the right thing to do, but I have good rapport.
You and I are the same way with that. I had a lot of that give and take with students, and it kind of puts you more on an even level,
right,
in that communication.
And, I don't know what it is. I try to get the best out of them. That's partly the coaching, the motivation, the teaching. Like I said, we can always get better. I try to find the happy medium between the discipline, the things that I talked about earlier about what I think is important in the classroom, or on the court or on the field, and still come away with knowing that we're making a difference in your life. When you ask me some of the things or what's the thing that I enjoy the most, is, especially through my coaching career, you were hard on kids, trying to make them better. Same in the classroom, but it probably fits better in the athletic situation. We have a lot of kids go on missions. They come back with gratitude for making life hard for them. So when they saw hard things, they could adapt and adjust. And I think that's some of the important things that we got to continue doing, especially in athletics. I think athletics is great. It teaches you to win and lose, sportsmanship, play together. So when you get out in the real world and things go wrong, or tough days,
which they will,
adversity, how you respond. And I talk about that quite a bit. And so it's interesting, and there's a good place in my heart when I have a student athlete come back and tell me, hey, thanks for making things hard, and it was easier to accomplish something, whether it was a mission or a job or marriage or life or dealing with kids. So I hope we're good influences. And back to my father, I remember him coming home from a coach's clinic, and John Wooden, the legendary coach from UCLA, was there, and he brought back a copy of his Pyramid of Success. And he had signed it, and he talked about the cornerstones. Hard work and enthusiasm were the cornerstones of his Pyramid of Success. So I think we get away from that sometimes in our life, or I see that a lot. And I just think we have to go back to hard work. You can become who you want, what you want, and it's effort, whether it's athletics or in your job, and then stay enthusiastic the best you can. You know,
No
his
question.
definition of success was peace of mind knowing you did your best to become the best you're capable of becoming. And it could be on different gauges, or, you know, like I said, when I have a difference of opinion on a student athlete or even a kid in class, I'm always talking about raise your level, and this is where I expect you to be, you know. And so people have different levels of what they feel is success because of their efforts or their ability. So just a tidbit of information, or what I thought was important on success. Yeah.
That's great input. Thanks for sharing that. Let me wrap up with a couple of questions. The first of which is, you're a veteran athletic director, and if you could share two items that a new athletic director, years 1 through 4, absolutely would need to have in order to be successful, what would those two things be?
You know, I think is just double check your checklist. You know, our secretary, who makes my job so much easier. Susan's a fantastic secretary, but I'm always, hey, we got the officials, are they on today? And we're checking, you know, to see if they're who it is, and communication with the team that we're playing, their AD or their coach. And again, in our region, I'm pretty good friends with most of them, so it's a call or just a double check. So the first thing would be checking that list, if not checking it twice, just to make sure that do we have 3 games? Do we have a freshman, JV, and varsity? Do we have sophomore game? Or, you know, what time's the bus leaving? All those things that need to be clock keepers, just double checking things. And then I don't know if, you know, I mentioned communication with everybody. That's kind of along the lines of the checklist. You know, if there was something else, maybe have a passion. You know, have a passion in what you do.
Great answer.
We have a hard job in the sense that most of us teach full schedules. At the larger schools, probably not, but they have business and things they're doing all day.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know, there's games, 2 or 3 home games, 2 or 3 nights a week that you have to attend or have help to. And so it's long, busy days. And keep that passion up, have a passion for athletics and helping kids succeed.
Well said. Thank you for that. Let's finish with this. What questions should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
You know, I don't know if there is a question. I think we're good. I can't think of one. Have you had good responses on those answers or things? Or
I've had about half of them say that they're not sure that we covered everything, and then and sometimes I get these off the wall, like I think Daryl Nance from South Carolina said, "What's your favorite national park?" So we talked a little bit about that. And of course, speaking of national parks, you're right in the doorstep of 3 of them right there. Actually, 4 of them if you count the Grand Canyon. So
yeah. Well, and it's a great place. Like I said, it's rural, but it's nice. I love Zion. Bryce is close. And then when I grew up in Jackson, we were in Grand Teton or Yellowstone.
Absolutely.
So when I go up there, it's nice. The fall, I like fall, and today is the first day of fall, if I'm not mistaken.
You are correct.
You know, you get up to some of those places with the leaves changing, you see more animals, and it's less congested. You know, since COVID, we haven't talked much COVID in making athletic directors harder work because of the testing and what took place.
Absolutely.
And it's been difficult. You know, you're testing making sure everybody's healthy. And I'd like to see just get through that and continue like the old days.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that wraps it up for another edition of the UIAAA Connection. Once again, our guest has been Steve Hoagland, Athletic Director at Piute High School. Steve, thanks so much for being on the program today.
Appreciate you, Mark. Really appreciate what you do. You've done a great job, and keep it up.
Thank you. For our listeners, we hope you tune in next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.